So it feels like 40mm has become sort of the new obscure hipster focal length over the past 1 or 2 years or so. Like the new go-to standard focal length that essentially does it all and sort of replaces both 35 and 50mm for a lot of people. But since I've been busy shooting nothing other than my Leica Q2 for the past 2 or 3 years or so, I haven't paid too much attention to that phenomenon. However, that has changed when Leica themselves released a new variant of their Leica Q series, the Leica Q3 43. So 43mm is apparently the most accurate focal length because 43mm is actually also the diagonal of a full frame sensor, and so therefore everything in your images will appear as big or as small as it appears to you and your own eyes in real life, which in turn gives the images a more natural and sort of true to life feeling. Now, a few weeks ago, shortly after Leica has announced their new Q3 43, I made a video stating why I will stick with my beloved Leica Q2 instead of getting one of those new Q3 43s. And the main reason was essentially that for my needs, which is mostly just documenting my day-to-day life, a 28mm lens seemed more sensible because it allows me to get more context of what is happening, especially with things that happen pretty close to me. However, since I've released that video, I've also watched a ton of YouTube videos, some of them on the Leica Q3 43, and those videos have been mostly positive, but more importantly, I've also spoken to a bunch of Q3 43 owners. And one of those actually also owns a Leica Q2, a Leica M10, a Leica MP, a bunch of Leica M lenses, and so on, a bunch of Fuji gear as well. And when I asked him which camera he would keep if he could only keep one, he actually stated that he would keep the Leica Q3 43. He loves it that much. And that is a huge statement coming from someone who is as passionate about their Leica M cameras as that person is. And so that actually sparked my curiosity again. But since I don't really have the kind of money to just hang with the cool kids, I couldn't just go out and buy a Q3 43. And so what I did instead was to go out and buy a 40mm lens for my Sony a7 IV. This one, to be more precise, the Viltrox 40mm f2.5 prime. Now Sony also sells a 40mm f2.5 lens, and even though that lens isn't too expensive at roughly 560 euros, I got this Viltrox lens for just 135 euros, which is an absolute steal in my book. So, will this lens have the same optical qualities as the new 43mm Summicron on the Q3? Hell no. I mean, this lens essentially costs just about as much as a bag of potatoes, and so I expected it to have pretty much the same image quality. But I have had good experiences using Viltrox lenses in the past, especially on my Fujifilm X-T4. My 13mm f1.4 prime lens for that Fuji system was one of my favorite lenses for the X-T4. And so at this price point, I decided to just give this lens a go and see what 40mm is all about. And yes, I know 40mm is not quite the same as 43mm, but you know, shut up. Also, this is not supposed to be a review of this particular lens, but more sort of a first impressions video on using a 40mm lens. And so yesterday morning, I actually took this lens for a little morning photo walk. You get these frosted spider webs everywhere. They do look, well, interesting, I suppose. So this sleepy little village that I'm in right now is famous for its old timber frame houses, which are absolutely beautiful, as you can see. Such a cool house. Okay, now comes the part that I'm not looking forward to, because the road that I have, or the way that I have picked out to get to the
to the edge of the city, if you like, is this way, which is called the Himmelsleiter, which roughly translates to Heaven's Ladder. And that's kind of what it feels like too. It's super steep, probably doesn't look like it on camera, as is always the case. Is that an interesting shot, perhaps? I wish I could do this without gloves. Well, maybe. I'm not quite happy. Now you may be asking yourself, I'm just taking these photos to catch my breath. And yes, that is the case. Well, anyway, where was we? Yeah, so this, by the way, it's called the Dol Augustina House for everyone or anyone who's interested. They do have fantastic cake there, at least in the summer. And it's on kind of an honor system. This is not a business. It is run by, I don't know, a group of local women. And they just bake a couple of fresh cakes every Saturday during the summer. And so you can just go in there, or there's nobody who takes a payment. You leave some cash, you take a piece of cake, you can sit down back in the garden, and all the money that is collected is reinvested to upkeep this beautiful house. And you should see it from the inside. It's beautiful. It's kept in what looks like a very original kind of state. And there's also a beautifully maintained garden on the other side of it. Yeah, so let's talk about shooting with the A7 IV and the 40mm f2.5. Well, no, let's not do that right now. I'm out of breath. What was I thinking? I wonder, I mean, obviously this is auto ISO and therefore auto exposure. And I wonder if that might be a mistake because of all of that fog. I think those images might be underexposed. And that is where not being that accustomed to this camera is kind of, yeah, not to my advantage. I mean, I have shot this a lot, but not in all kinds of conditions. And I'm not always sure how it will behave, which is a completely different story with my Leica Q2, obviously, because I have used that camera for, I don't know, years and years and years in all kinds of conditions. And I know that camera like better than I know myself. By the way, my fingers are absolutely freezing right now. Feels like somebody's just sticking needles in my fingers. Not the most pleasant feeling of all times, but hey, again, suffer for your art, right? By the way, I do feel weird calling whatever it is that I'm doing art. Oh, can you see that? I hope that shows up on camera. And I'm talking about the little silhouette of the mountain, that little bit of curvature that you get, that illuminated curvature that you get up in the sky. That looks ridiculous. That looks really good. I do like it a lot. Morgen. Okay, well, looks like we're getting a bit of a sunrise after all. That has just started to pop off. That looks gorgeous. quick shot with the Leica Q2, standing in exactly the same place. I do like me some Leica Q2. Yeah, I can always, I think it's always hard to say, well, those look quite nice. Can't say for certain though, until I get back home and view them on the big screen. Or just my MacBook. To make that absolute center of frame. But obviously slightly to the bottom. I don't like it that much. I do want to get that bit of curvature in the screen or in the frame as well. So how about that? I don't know. It's not too brilliant either. This is the road that I usually take with my motorcycle. I want to head into the Black Forest. Not that anyone really cares, but now you know. Let's see if we can make that house work, if we can single out that house. Yes, I think we can. I was just about to say that you might have to crop it, but I don't think we actually do. We just move around a bit. Only real shame is that I would also love to get that house up on top in frame as well. But if I do compose it like that, I do also get the red roof in frame. And I don't like it. Quick shot of that house from here. Oh, interesting. Yeah, if we are standing here, with the power of cropping, that might actually work. Truth be told, I'm currently thinking about buying new gear. Who would have thought? No, but seriously, I am contemplating whether or not it makes more sense to... Wait a minute. That doesn't look too shabby. Let's try that as a horizontal. Oh, I do like that. Well, where was we? I am contemplating whether or not it would make more sense to invest my money into this Sony system, because I am really enjoying this camera right now. Or if I should get a Leica M or a Leica Q343. Well, nothing at all. Just work with what I have.
And so yeah, that was about half or so of yesterday morning's photo walk. I did actually continue for another 45 minutes or so and took a couple more photos, but I decided not to film it. Anyway, about the 40mm lens, I think that I actually do get it. Now, it wasn't exactly like every shot I took yesterday morning was an instant keeper, far from it, as is usually the case, but shooting that lens just instantly felt oddly familiar, like seeing an old friend again. And that is quite something, because it usually takes me quite a while to get used to a new focal length that I've never shot before. Not with this one though, and I suspect that that is simply because this focal length is fairly close to what we just see with our own eyes. And so yeah, using this lens just felt more intuitive than using either a 35mm or a 50mm lens. And so I guess I do understand what the hype is all about. Focal length aside though, I also do have to say that I was kind of blown away by this cheap little piece of plastic lens. I mean, 135 euros is nothing in today's camera market, and aside from it feeling just a bit plasticky, I really can't fault it. Yes, it's just an f2.5 lens, so not exactly the fastest lens in the world, but neither is the Sony 40mm lens, because that also is just an f2.5 lens, but it costs almost 5 times as much. And also, since this is a full frame lens, having an f2.5 aperture at 40mm actually gives you quite a decent amount of bokeh to work with. I've also found it to be very sharp, the colors look nice, it is silent, so not like in the olden days where you would buy a cheap lens and the autofocusing motor would just be incredibly noisy. Not that at all. And so yeah, aside from it just being a bit too plasticky, I really couldn't fault it. And so you do have to wonder how a lens that is this cheap can be this good. And perhaps more importantly, also just this much fun. Because yes, I was actually really enjoying my time with the Sony a7 IV yesterday. And if you've watched this channel before, you know that I do love my Sony a7 IV for how capable it is, but I wouldn't exactly say that it is a joy to use. And so yes, great focal length, very intuitive, and also with this cheap and cheerful option, just a lot more accessible than just spending 7 grand on a Leica Q343. So I will keep this one for sure, and I'm very much looking forward to just using it some more. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope this was interesting to you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye.